The smell of roasted turkey still clung to the air when the living room went quiet. Wrapping paper was crumpled in corners, lights blinked lazily on the tree, and my brother leaned back in Dad's recliner like it was his throne. He looked at me the way he always had, like my time was his to claim. "Maria, you'll watch the kids for a week while we cruise," he said, tapping his wife's leather planner with the tip of a pen. He didn't ask. He declared. I was 31 years old, not 16 anymore, but the way he said it made me feel like I was still the unpaid babysitter no one thanked. His wife smiled politely like it was already settled. "No," I answered, soft but steady. My fork hovered above mashed potatoes. "Not this time." He blinked as if I had misread my lines. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean," I pushed my chair back, heart thrumming against my ribs, "I won't be here. I'm not your backup plan." The silence was heavier than the smell of gravy cooling on the table. My mother sighed, my father coughed into his napkin, but no one defended me. My brother chuckled, low and dismissive, the sound of a man who thought the world still bent for him. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries so casually it felt like theft? Let me know in the comments. I watched him write something down in that planner, still smirking, and in that moment I knew. This year Christmas would end differently. The next morning, frost clung to the windows, turning the yard into glass. I woke up early, the house still humming with the aftertaste of family tension. In the kitchen, a single mug sat in the sink. He always left things behind for someone else to clean. By noon, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I didn't have to look out the window to know who it was. The slam of car doors confirmed it. Laughter. Children tumbling up the porch steps. The scrape of luggage wheels against wood. They hadn't believed me. I stayed in my room, the note already taped to the front door in my own looping handwriting. "Gone for the week. Do not leave the kids here. I am not your sitter." I had underlined "not" twice. Through the thin walls I heard the knock. Then the pause. Then his voice, sharp, not amused. "Maria, open the door. This isn't funny." I closed my eyes, imagining his hand gripping the note. His wife's sharp intake of breath. The kids' confusion. Another knock, harder this time. Then the rattling of the doorknob. "You're being ridiculous." But I didn't move. Instead, I listened to the sound of luggage being dragged back down the steps, their voices growing tight, panicked. His wife's tone snapped like a whip. "I told you she meant it." I almost smiled. Almost. What they didn't know was that the note was only the first step. The real surprise waited, and it was bigger than any cruise ship. I sat by the window as their SUV idled at the curb, exhaust curling into the cold. My brother stood there in the driveway, the note clenched in his fist like it had burned him. His wife kept her arms folded, jaw locked, glaring at him the way a storm glares before breaking. The kids shuffled their feet, clutching stuffed animals, confused why Aunt Maria wasn't opening the door with Coco and movies. It wasn't just about babysitting. It had never been. It was about being invisible. For years, I had bent every time he snapped his fingers, missing work shifts, canceling dates, driving through snowstorms, because Maria will take them. And when I tried to say no, I was guilt, mocked, or worse, ignored. "Not this time." He finally shouted toward the house. "This is selfish. You know that, right? We already booked everything." I whispered to the glass, "Not my debt to pay." His wife tugged his arm, pulling him back toward the car. Her voice cut through the air, cold and certain. "I told you she wouldn't. You never listen." He stuffed the note into his pocket, scowling as if I had betrayed some sacred pact. But I just stayed still, hand on the curtain, watching. When the SUV finally pulled away, I exhaled. On the table beside me lay another piece of paper, folded neatly, copies of emails I had been saving for months. Emails that didn't just prove how often I'd been used, but something far uglier he had hidden. They thought my note was the surprise. They hadn't seen the storm yet. That night, I spread the papers across my coffee table like puzzle pieces. Bank statements, work memos, screenshots. All the little breadcrumbs he never thought anyone noticed. See, my brother had a habit of leaning on me for childcare, but he also leaned on my name. Years ago, when I helped him start his contracting business, I co-signed some paperwork, just until things picked up. I was young, trusting. I never imagined he'd keep my signature alive like a ghost, attaching it to late fees and unpaid invoices. I ran my finger over the letterhead. Clients complaining about unfinished jobs. Small claims court warnings. And tucked among them the worst one. A letter threatening suspension of my professional license because he'd filed permits under my credentials. My chest tightened. Babysitting was only the surface. This was parasitic. He'd built convenience after convenience on my back, and smiled through it all like Christmas dinners erased the debt. I folded the pages back into their envelope. Tomorrow, while he scrambled with his cruise cancelled, he'd find himself in another kind of storm. The complaints were already in motion, but I'd been silent about it, until now. For the first time I felt a strange calm. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It just needed to be undeniable. In the corner of the room, the kid's crayon drawing he'd once left behind was still pinned to my fridge. A crooked house, a stick-figure family, me holding their hands. I touched the paper gently. They were the only innocent ones in this. But their father was about to learn what no really meant. The morning after, snow fell thick and heavy, muffling the world. I dressed slowly, choosing silence over speed, pulling on a coat that smelled faintly of pine cleaner. My phone buzzed, 3 missed calls from my brother, 1 curt text. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't answer. Instead, I drove across town to the county office. The clerk knew me by name. I'd been here twice in the past month, gathering copies, building a record. Today I filed the last form, my signature crisp, my hands steady. Walking back to my car, I passed a shop window filled with tiny silver keys on velvet cloth. I stopped. A key, ordinary, gleaming, stared back at me. My motif. My reminder. A key can open or it can lock. It can give or it can deny. I bought it, slipping it into my pocket like a talisman. By the time I got home, the SUV was already in my driveway. He was pacing, coat unzipped, his wife sitting stone-faced inside the car. I stepped out, papers tucked under my arm. He strode toward me. "What the hell are you doing? You made us look like idiots yesterday." I didn't flinch. "You did that yourself. Don't start." He jabbed a finger at me. "Those complaints, don't pretend you had nothing to do with them. People are calling me." "I didn't pretend," I said quietly. "I signed them." His face drained. His wife's head turned sharply inside the car. The snow kept falling, steady and relentless, like judgment itself. For the first time he had no script. His breath steamed in the cold as he stared at me, stunned. You reported me?" "Yes." My voice didn't waver. "Every permit, every unpaid job you stamped my name on. I'm done carrying your mess." He looked over his shoulder, maybe to see if his wife was listening, but the glass of the car window reflected only his own panicked face back at him. "You've ruined me," he spat. I shook my head. "You did that. I just stopped hiding it." For a long moment, only the snow spoke, hissing softly as it touched the warm hood of his SUV. His kids' faces pressed against the backseat window, small and wide-eyed. I forced myself not to look at them for too long, not to let their confusion unravel me. "You still wear that perfume?" His words came out of nowhere, sharp, almost bitter. It was one of his old tricks. Deflection, sudden intimacy to soften me. Mom used to say it made the house smell like flowers. I almost laughed at the absurdity. "You think this is about perfume?" His wife stepped out then, boots crunching on the ice. "What's going on?" Her tone was thin, dangerous. I met her eyes. "He used me. My license. My name. It's all documented." Her gaze slid to him and I saw it. The first crack in her certainty. He muttered, "She's exaggerating." But the wind carried my words clearer than his excuses. "No. I've got the keys to every lie you built." My hand pressed against the cold metal in my pocket, the silver key I'd bought. A reminder that locks can change. The silence after my words felt heavier than the snowfall. His wife's eyes narrowed, scanning his face the way someone reads a contract they suddenly regret signing. "Is it true?" she asked him. He hesitated, and that was enough. Her lips pressed tight, her shoulders squared. "You dragged me here, embarrassed us in front of your sister, and you didn't even tell me she was tied to your mess?" He stepped forward, desperation leaking through his voice. "It's not that bad. I just borrowed her name. She's overreacting." "Borrowed?" I cut in. My breath frosted between us, sharp as glass. You forged. You lied. And you expected me to babysit while you skipped town on a cruise. The kids watched through the window, fogging the glass with their breath. Their innocence was a weight pressing on all of us. His wife's voice broke, brittle. We used our savings for that trip. Do you know how many times I asked if we were safe? You swore. For the first time he seemed small. His shoulders sank, his bluster dissolved into a kind of frantic quiet. He reached for me, but I stepped back, fingers curled around the silver key in my pocket. This isn't revenge, I told him. It's accountability. The complaints will go through. You'll have to answer, not me. I'm free. Snowflakes landed on his hair, melting into drops that slid down his temples like sweat. He looked from me to his wife, then to the car where his children pressed their palms against the glass. The note yesterday had shaken him. But this was the moment he realized doors had closed and I was the one holding the key. The drive away was silent but for the hiss of snow. My brother stood there, his planner tucked uselessly under his arm, pages damp from melting flakes. He opened his mouth twice but nothing came out. His wife, on the other hand, had no trouble finding words. You're going to fix this, she said flatly, her eyes on him, not me. No more lies. No more dragging people down with you. He tried to protest but she cut him off with a single look, sharp enough to carve him down to size. I saw it then. The empire of convenience he'd built on me had collapsed in an instant, and not by screaming or spectacle but by quiet exposure. I pulled the silver key from my pocket, held it for a moment in my palm, then placed it on the porch railing between us. This isn't for you, I said. It's for me. I don't unlock your doors anymore. I don't carry your weight. Find your own way in. His face, pale and stunned, told me he understood. I turned back inside, shutting the door gently. No slamming, no last insult, just the kind of silence that echoes louder than rage. Behind me I heard his wife mutter, "She's right." And then the sound of luggage wheels dragging across the icy wood, not with triumph but with defeat. I leaned against the door, breathing in the pine and wax scent of my own house, a space finally mine. Have you ever had to draw a line so sharp it cut someone out of your life? Tell me in the comments. Snow kept falling, soft and endless, as though the world itself was rewriting.